Looking for real stories that lift you up? Welcome to Inspire and Impact, the podcast where purpose meets perseverance. This is where transformation begins and your story continues.
Welcome to the Inspire Impact podcast. I'm your host, Daniel Rosenstein. The show features real conversations with thought leaders, healers, and entrepreneurs who share their journeys of growth, purpose, and making meaningful impact. Today, I have the honor of interviewing Bess McCarty. Bess, thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Daniel, thank you for having me.
So, Bess, can you take us back to your early journey and kind of, to introduce yourself to the audience a little bit and tell us about your journey and what first inspired you to explore, healing and personal growth?
Oh boy. I am a holistic health practitioner and an inner child coach for over 35 years. And didn't start out that way. I started out as a shy kid who was so shy that when company come over, I go hide out in my room. And I was a loner, not a teacher and a therapist and all of this, which I've become. I've, been on the internet a lot, and I've taught a lot of classes for 30 years. I've been a teacher and a speaker. So I started as a real loner who didn't feel like I belonged or didn't feel like I was okay or good enough or likable or anything. The reason I hid in my room was because when company come over, because I thought I wouldn't be liked. They would criticize me. They would judge me. And that hurt. Whether they were or not, internally, that's what I thought was happening. And that hurt a lot, and it was painful. So in my life, I have stayed more to myself to be safe. And that's one of our basic needs, to feel safe emotionally. And it was lonely. I was lonely. And that was painful too, but it seemed less of a risk than putting myself out there and being seen. So I looked for love. I was still lonely and I still needed love. So I tried to find it in relationships and men. And one marriage led me to therapy. And that was because it was time. At that age, I was 28. And all of my stuff came up that I had wanted to put aside or deny or put away. All of my issues came up and showed themselves in that marriage. And we fought. We were angry. We were trying to find love in each other. And that didn't work. And I was mad. This man isn't loving me. And I would say, I went to my therapist as a result, and I kept saying, he won't love me. And she was saying, it isn't that he won't, it's that he can't. And for the first time, I got to see about compassion, and somebody else could be human too. And that he wasn't there just to love me and meet my needs. I thought, somebody's supposed to love me. Where's that person supposed to love me? Because maybe I didn't get all the love I know I didn't get all the love that I wanted from my mom and dad, and they were wonderful, but there was dysfunctions there too, like every family has. I was mad. I wasn't getting the love, and we fought, and I was confused. There was stuff in me coming out of my mouth, and my feelings, I didn't know where they came from. It scared me, and I didn't know what was going on. So I went to see a friend who was actually a counselor. And she helped me to see my own self-responsibility about learning to love myself. When we're a kid, we can't do that so easily. We have to rely on mom or dad. But when we're grown up, we now have an inner parent along with our inner child, and we can self-soothe, self-comfort, and cherish and love ourselves now. Now we can do that. Now we know that we're big and we know how to do that. So I learned how to do that. The marriage didn't stay together, but we are friends today, co-parenting our son. I just saw him yesterday, and very glad that we've both done a lot of healing. And sometimes we have long talks about the healing that we've done. It works. It works. We don't need to put up with isolation and loneliness and disappointment, anger and fear that interfere with our relationships and our work and even causes bad health. Because some doctors now say that most illnesses are caused from stress. And most stress, I think, comes from trauma from childhood carried forward. And one lady said, I did my inner child work, like all these diseases I had disappeared. So it's such powerful work, and I'm so grateful for it. That was my journey, but I started there so that I can understand how other people feel and have turned that pain into my life mission.
Can you share the moment you realized the power of your inner child work and how it transformed your own life?
Yeah, this was dramatic. My greatest story about that is my own when it was during that marriage that I spoke about. And we had a child, little baby boy. And you know how when you're a parent and you have a child, you're just in love with that child and you're in heaven and you're in bliss, even though you might not be sleeping all the time, but you're in love with this child. You gaze in each other's eyes and you're in this heaven and parent bliss. And that was happening to me. But also something really weird was happening, really confusing and scary. I was also heartbroken and lonely. I thought, what is that about? I mean, aside from that, I wasn't getting the love again from my husband that I was looking for. What was this heartbreak about? And my little son, just a few months old or whatever, a few weeks or few months old, would wake up in the night, hungry. He would nurse. He'd go back to sleep. But not me. I would stay awake and cry. So I went in the living room, and cried through the night. And my husband heard me a few times, and he got up and he came in and he goes, what's wrong? And I go, I don't know. And he'd hold me. And then after a few nights of this going on, he goes, I got to work in the morning. You're on your own. And so then I was really heartbroken and felt abandoned. And so this went on for a while until I thought to ask my mom, hey, Mom, you had 4 babies. I was the oldest. When you had your babies, did you ever leave them to cry alone in the crib? She goes, oh, yeah, that's what we were taught back then. If the baby's not wet or hungry, let them cry it out. See, they don't get spoiled. And remember, this was the industrial age when productivity was really highly valued, and you don't want the baby to get in the way of getting your job done as a housekeeper and keeping the house looking all spiffy like the commercials and movies do. So she just did what she was taught. And there's cultures today, Native cultures, when they hear the stories like these, they're horrified. They're horrified about what that can do to the child. And what it did to me was I was in the crib alone, and I had this deep, deep heartbreak. I mean, it was excruciatingly painful because, a baby is wide open and comes in with all this love, ready to give and receive love. And when that doesn't happen, the baby is crushed. The baby's heartbroken. Even in little instances, but this was a big one. I was left alone to cry it out when I needed connection with my mommy. I had come out of her body. I needed her near me. I needed her holding me, to feel her skin, to smell her, to hear her, and to comfort me and let me know she was there and that she saw me, and to play with me and laugh with me and everything. And I'm sure that happened some, but not when she was busy. And so I had this deep, deep, crushing heartbreak. And I learned that I wasn't, and therefore learned that I was not worth it. I was not worth coming in and holding, and not worth the time and the connection. And I learned that I had to deal with my pain alone. So you can see where that played into my life of being a loner, and you have to deal with things alone, and you can only trust yourself. You can't trust that somebody else will be there. So now I knew where this pain came from. Now, what do I do about it? It hurt a lot. It hurt a lot to open it up and feel all that, which my son triggered because it was time for me to open that up and just feel all that deep pain. Time at last, but I kind of encapsulated, put it away before, but now my son triggered it. So I'm in all this pain. And night after night, this goes on. And I think that one night it just hurt so bad and so deep that I must have just given up and surrendered somehow. And then what happened was this vision of her big, bosomy grandmother came, scooped me up, and rocked me in her arms. And I was enveloped with this woman's body and her arms and her love, and it felt like unconditional love. And she rocked me, and she rocked me for a long time. And I felt comforted and healed and loved and held and valued and wanted and connected. Just what I needed. This went on for a while. I felt better. I learned that I could come back anytime I needed it and come back to her. And I learned that a person could create in their imagination and visualization whatever they were creating, whatever they didn't get from their parents, whatever they wanted from that man in their marriage or another person, or were mad they weren't getting, that they could give that to themselves. It didn't have to come from outside of them. It can, and that would be wonderful and extra. But the core loving and valuing has to start here with ourselves. And so I learned about loving myself and giving this to myself and not making my husband responsible for this, for what I needed to be giving to. I wanted to give him to give me what I wouldn't do for myself. And I learned that, that self-responsibility and that self-healing. And I knew that other people must feel like me, and I wanted to share this with others. And that began my inner child work. I looked into John Bradshaw, and I learned from other inner child healers and took off from there, led classes, and used that in my work. So it led to helping people to be in touch with what I call real conversations with their inner child, to be in touch with their feelings. And that leads us, some people, I don't know what I need, It's likely whatever you're mad at somebody for not giving you, whatever you're mad at God or life about. But one way is to say, okay, what's my feelings? I'm mad because I want what? So we start with the feelings. We start with the problem. Like for me, my dysfunctional marriage, angry at husband. Okay, so I'm angry. What do I want? I want love. I want to be held. I want to be listened to. I want to be understood. I want to be looked at. I want to be seen. And how can I give that to myself or ask another person for it? Or maybe I can get it from my spiritual guide or my whatever, what I envision God to be like. So we go to the feelings and the need, knowing what we need.
Oh, thank you so much for sharing that powerful story. That's really amazing, able to figure that out. And thank you so much for being so brave to share that. I don't know how many people will be openly and willing to share that to everybody in the audience. So thank you. That was really powerful. I'm sure a lot of people in the audience probably feel the same way you do. I mean, it's very interesting that you and me connected, because I've had a lot of inner child healing I had to do in my own life. And that was a very big deal. So a lot of things you're saying, obviously I'm a man or a woman, we come from different backgrounds, but we have similar beliefs, I guess life lessons we had to learn. So it's really interesting how we got connected. I mean, I wanted to ask you, like when you used to hide from people as a child, what helped you step out of that fear into a voice as a leader and teacher?
Oh boy. First of all, was going to get the counseling, because a person can't see their own blind spots. We need to reach out for help, and it's okay to ask for help. My gosh. So counseling, at that time even had a stigma, like you're not okay, you're mentally ill or something like that. But I just had to do it because that marriage blew everything open. It's like I had no choice. I have to surrender. I have to be humble enough. I have to ask for help, which was dangerous for somebody who wanted to be a loner and be protected and be alone and all that stuff. So to ask for help, that was an act of courage to go and tell somebody my feelings, even though they might not like me and judge me and all that stuff. But to go and have the courage that it's okay to ask for help. It's normal to. And in fact, all the successful people we know have coaches and therapists, and why not? That's available to help us, and to be self-accepting that I have dysfunction in me, and I probably always will, because I'm not perfect. I'll never be perfect. And everybody is working at their next step. We're all in this together. We're all doing the same thing. And look around. Nobody's better than me, and I'm no better than anybody else. We're all in it. We might as well link arms and give each other compassion and support and steps along the way, and share tips and learn from each other. So I went to the counselor, learning that over time. I learned that to accept it's okay to be helped. I deserve it. And it's not a sign of weakness. It's a sign of strength and being smart to ask somebody to help spot things you can't, and spin through some things that you have, to be able to help you through your roadblocks that you run into. Another thing that helped was I wanted to serve. I wanted to help life. And how could I do that if I was going to be isolated and invisible? Like many people who are speakers, I declare myself a vehicle for spirit. Okay, spirit, you use me. It's not, Bess McCarty, little ego or self speaking. You use me. What do people need? How can I serve? And then this cool feeling flows through, a good feeling flows through when I give service. And I like that feeling. And I wanted to do more and more of it. So I better get over my shyness. When I step into a place of service, that seems to eliminate the shyness, because I'm doing it for God, for spirit, for the person who needs to hear this. And that gets me out of being shy. When I was a teenager, I was reading a 16 magazine that said, if you go to a dance and there's a boy and he's talking to you, to get over being shy, focus on him. Ask him about himself. And so that's what I did before we interviewed. Daniel asked a little about you. That gets the attention off me and my shyness. And so if you're interested in someone else, your attention is not on you. Fear and shyness is really selfish. It's attention on self. So I turned that around and put the attention on what other people need, how I can help them. And that I still have to do that all the time, but that's how I handle my shyness.
That's really amazing. And you speak you're a very eloquent speaker. I would have known before this interview that you had like a shyness issue. You seem like very outgoing and very confident when you speak. So it was a little bit surprising to hear that you used to be shy, or maybe you still are shy. That's really, and maybe some people like the audience feel the same way, like you said, their fear of being seen, being heard, including myself. I've had that issue for many years. They can take heart to that. So thank you very much for giving that advice to everybody. I mean, now that you've done all this healing work over the many years, what do you find to be some like the biggest emotional blocks that you personally had to overcome?
Loving ourselves. When I do inner child work with people, the deepest work that I do, we do regression back to the early childhood stages, even being in the womb and birth in years 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And then they write out, people on the deepest work I do, they write out a 50-page questionnaire, and we do regressions back to each one of these stages. There's a lot of writing and internal searching that they do. And over all of that, Over all the people that I've worked with, the most frequent issue that comes up is abandonment. Right there, you were abandoned, meaning your parent wasn't there physically. They worked a lot. They traveled. They worked long hours. When they come home, they were exhausted. So they weren't, emotionally there for you, or they didn't know how to love because of their own childhood. So they're not emotionally available for you and connecting. They can't really see you. They got their own problems going on and I don't have time for your problems, So abandonment in all these ways, in all the steps that parent needed to be there to help the child through different stages of life, to teach the child about life, how to take care of themselves, how to navigate relationships in school, how to learn. The parent was there through all the different milestones that the child went through to help them to be functional in their life. Most of the time, the parent couldn't do it because they weren't taught that. They hadn't done their personal growth work and they didn't know how to be parents. There's no school, except life and no official school for parents. So abandonment, this stage, that stage, I find that all through their history. That means that the child, the adult now, still has to learn how and give that to themselves, like I learned to, how to love yourself, take care of yourself, stick up for yourself, set boundaries in relationships, that you're worth it, you deserve it. To have to learn all this. So loving ourselves, because that's the answer. The abandonment showed about loving ourselves, valuing ourselves. Stop there.
What I learned in my history, my experiences, some of these things like love is like a gift. And just like any other type of gift, it's a gift you can give yourself. So I learned that, like, in a way, that's the way I kind of reframed all this through my own inner child healing work, that love was a gift. I give, even though like people in the past, they have not given that to me like the way I would have liked to receive it. I can give that gift of love to myself, and that's helped me enormously.
Thank you for that tie-in. I think
Yeah,
a lot of people can read.
As you said, a lot of people have issues with abandonment, self-love. That's definitely not uncommon. I've talked to hundreds, if not thousands of people in my life, and a lot of people said they always felt they either were abandoned at one point in their life or didn't receive the love that they wanted. I mean, these are really big issues. And I want to ask you, because you've helped, hundreds of maybe thousands of people in your healings with other people. Sometimes you're able to do it in as fast as one session. You share maybe like a breakthrough story you have with some of your clients, with the audience, of kind of like what that looked like for some of your clients?
Yes, I'd like to tell you about George, because this is really fascinating. There's a chiropractor who knew the work that I did, the inner child and body mind work. And he said, I have this patient who keeps coming every year with a car accident. Okay, here's George, another car accident, his annual car accident. And it's never his fault. He's always got hit. And he said, this is, this repeating here, I think there could be something, in the emotional or mind, set area, something there could it be causing this? Could he be, drawing this to himself in some weird way? I said, let's see. I met with George, and it turned out that as a child, his father always put him down, always knocked him down. I don't know if I think there was hitting physically and emotionally and verbally, just like you got hit by the car, he's always getting hit. His father put him down, and he was told, you'll never amount to anything. You'll never be anything. And George had this furniture business that was successful, but yet he couldn't, but yet every year this car accident would knock him down to kind of the ground zero, and he had to start all over healing and building his business back up. And then it would knock him down again, So in this weird way, he was playing out his father's prediction for him. And in a weird way, his inner child was being loyal to his father. This is so uncanny, but even though we're big and we don't need to rely on the love of our parents anymore, or even if our parents were negative, there's a child inside of all of us that still longs for mommy and daddy's love. And that's what we hear on deathbed of people. On their deathbed, some of them in their dementia are crying out for mommy. And so this happened for George. And subconsciously, we found that he was drawing this energy, however we might reason it. He was drawing these accidents to him so that he could be faithful to the predictions of his father. And when he realized that, we talked about his feelings and needs, from when he was a child. And we went back and saw what that little boy was needing, was understanding and connection and love and validation from his father, and to value him and to see, you can do it, George. When you grow up, you can be whatever you want to be. And you'll always find a way to solve a problem because you're good at that. You're a smart boy. And that's what he needed to hear. So what we did is we went through visualizations like I did with my grandma, where he gave himself that. And he reparented his inner child. And at the end of our first session, he said, I've gotten farther in one session with you than in 3 years of weekly psychotherapy, because we went to the feelings and the needs and we changed the programming right there. So he left a changed man. And we did a few, more sessions, but guess what? He didn't have any more car accidents and his business grew successfully. It's one of the dramatic ones, another dramatic one too, if you'd like to hear that.
Sure, definitely. Please share.
This one, it's almost a little scary. John came as a middle-aged man, and he said, all my business life, all my adult life, I've been handicapped. He was a great, brilliant, successful businessman in Kansas City. He said, all my business life, I've been handicapped by this fear of heights. And he said, I cannot go in downtown Kansas City among the skyscrapers because I get terrified. And I can't ride up in an elevator. My fear is so great. He said, have you seen Mel Brooks? What's that called again? High anxiety. He said, it's just like that. He's standing on, in a height and just trembling and shaking uncontrollably, just like that. So he said, I've been to the top experts in the city and they haven't been able to help me with this. And what we did is we looked at his childhood. His father held him out as a baby over a several-story window while his mother screamed. So what did that imprint on him? But it didn't interfere with his life. He didn't really notice it till he became a young adult. Then it started coming up, and it started, okay, it's time to come in now. It's time to heal this. So he came up in around the high rises. Makes sense. That's what happened to him. So how do you change that? We did some work with releasing the fears, the terror, that he heard in his mother's voice, rightfully. We began releasing the negative emotional trauma and the negative beliefs all around that, and replacing it with the positive reframing of the emotions, the beliefs, and the experience, and essentially rewriting that experience, rewriting his childhood. After 3 sessions, he called me up and he said, I can go downtown. among the buildings. I can do business down there. I can ride up in the elevators now. First time in my life without that high anxiety. I can drive in the mountains with my wife now when I couldn't do that before. So you can imagine how grateful I felt for the tools that I've learned and developed to be able to change a life like that, even at retirement age. He was free of that fear and that trauma from childhood. So the message for me, have you ever had a fear that you don't want to look at? It hurts so much or so inconvenient in your life. Have you ever had that? And you think, I've just got to put up with it. I've just got to live with it, like a disease or something. And my message here is that you don't have to. Because anything that was learned as a child can be unlearned, because you came in kind of a clean slate, and whatever you learned can be unlearned. Whatever trauma that you had can be healed and loved. Please don't think you have to settle for it, that you have to put up with it, that there's nothing you can do, that you have to be alone or be afraid. It can change.
Those are amazing stories. Thank you so much for sharing, Bess. I mean, it's amazing how our minds work and how powerful this inner child healing work is. But if we can maybe take a step back, if that's okay with you, because there may be some people in the audience who are not familiar with inner child healing. Can you maybe explain, like, the people? I mean, how do you explain, what is it exactly you do with the inner child healing work if people don't know anything about it? And why is it so important to heal the inner child? Like, how does it impact people's daily lives, whether it's a personal life, like their marriage, or maybe even their business?
Yeah, thank you for that great question. Yeah, we need to explain inner child work. So here's a little child. I'm a grandma now. I'm a 5-year-old granddaughter. So here's a little child. And that child goes through different experiences, and maybe is told sometime, be quiet. The adults are talking. The child gets the message, I'm not as important as the adult, and I got the message as a child, children should be seen and not heard. Really, we don't say that so much anymore, but if you're my age, you might have had that program put in you, or, with today's children is, don't interrupt, maybe that child's too young to learn that yet. What they hear is that the adults are more important than me, perhaps. That little inner child, physically, the child still grows and grows and grows into an adult, but yet they still carry, if you can get a vision of an adult, but inside their heart or their tummy or somewhere is still that little inner child who is still feeling hurt about that. And so when it's time to join in a conversation, they might be too chicken. They might be too scared. They're going to be put down for joining in. Don't belong in this conversation. I better keep quiet. I might be criticized. I might be put down. I might not say something as good as the other people. So I'm just going to listen. In a conversation or on Zoom, you might have seen some people who are quiet all the time. And I wonder about their inner child. I wonder if they feel comfortable speaking up. I wonder if there's some programming in there that says, they're going to laugh at me. I won't be good enough. I'm not as important as them. I don't deserve to be heard. I'm not valuable or worthwhile or lovable like other people are, but I'm not. And so I just wonder, sometimes what's going on in that person's inner child. And that can affect their business, like George, who couldn't let himself be successful because he thought he didn't deserve it. It can affect marriages like mine when I was mad because I wasn't getting the love. I was really mad at my mom and dad and how my husband, as much as I was enacting that out with my mom and dad. My dad died when I was 10. He got sick when I was 8. He got cancer and died when I was 10. And part of me was still mad. They didn't have counseling back then. and couldn't help the child to adjust to losing her father. So part of me was mad that my dad was gone and taking it out on my husband. That's transference, a projection when we think, that person did it. Because we're still carrying the old pain and the wounds, and we're mad about that. And so I learned to parent myself and to give myself the inner father that I was missing, just like the inner grandmother. And of course, it can affect our health. That's why I love that I could become a body-mind therapist, because did you know that all the parts of our body have a psychological correlation? And like the knee is fear of change. And one lady, when it was time to, I think, leave a marriage, her knee hurt so bad that she became crippled. Her husband then had to take care of her. But she learned, where that was from, and to love herself and to have the courage and trust the flow of life. Life would still take care of her, even if she left a dysfunctional marriage, that she would be okay. And trust, that's big, to trust that life will be there for you. And her knee pain went away, and she was able to stand on her own and have a good life.
Can you maybe share with us like a story about what was one of the most surprising or unusual transformations that your client had that you worked with?
Recently, I happen to love coaching coaches. And a coach came to me, and she was triggered in her own practice by her clients' stories. They would trigger her own childhood, and she found that she couldn't work with them. She couldn't focus on helping the child that came to her who was having problems similar to what she had in childhood, which were still unhealed. So she couldn't focus. She couldn't do it. And she said, I know there's stuff in my childhood that I've got to tend to, but I'm kind of scared to go there because I don't know if it's going to open a whole Pandora's box and what's going to happen. Am I going to go back to my oldest self-destructive behaviors that I've left behind? Now, I don't want to open them up again and regress back and all that. So for months, she thought about it. And one man who came to my office, he said, okay, I'm here now. He said, I procrastinated coming here for years, but now the pain is greater than my fear, and now I'm here. And so that's the way it was for this coach. And she said, okay, I've got to go forward. I've got to go through this. So we did a very deep, the deep clearing process, which actually takes months, but that very, very deep clearing process. And we went back, and she did the questionnaire and the regressions, and we went back, and she found there was plenty that she had every reason to feel afraid, to feel low self-esteem, and a lot of trauma in her childhood. Now, how many people can relate to trauma in their childhood? Trauma can be anything from abandonment to moving a lot, to seeing your parents fighting, to being bullied as a child. Trauma comes in so many ways, and you have reason to feel the way you do and to have the needs that you have. So she went back, validated all of her feelings and needs that she was having, and she actually did physical bioenergetic releases of the negative beliefs that she had from her childhood, that she got from her parents and from her own experiences. She did releases of those out of her body, out of her cells, with voice and bodily actions. And then she reframed and redid those beliefs with the positive opposites. And she did this very thoroughly with all of her being and all of her heart. She came out of that a completely new person. She looked like a child. She looked free. And for the first time, she felt so young and happy and free of all of that old programming that she had been carrying for about 60 years. So great transformation, shining light. And now she is doing her practice and working with teens. And she's in her heaven. She's having the time of her life. She's so fulfilled and happy, and it's flowing. And she just adores working with these children.
It's so amazing. Thank you for sharing that. And it's always, wonderful to hear all these amazing stories of how people are transforming, letting go of their negative past and able to live in a brighter future. And can I ask you, what makes your real conversations process so effective for, achieving such amazing results?
Good question. And why did this person say, wow, one session with that took me more than 3 years a week of psychotherapy? Because most traditional therapists don't dive into those needs in order to meet them and change them. So that's the whole secret, is the needs, the need that's being unmet. And sometimes that can hide and be covered up because we think it's not okay to meet those needs. We were told as a child, stop being angry, stop hitting your sister, not telling the child where to redirect that anger. Just say, don't be angry, or don't cry. I'll give you something to cry about. You've cried long enough, because the parents are uncomfortable with their own feelings and needs that the child is triggering and bringing up. So the parent wants to hush that, squash it down, deny it, extinguish it. So that is why our needs are so hidden from us, because we were taught to put them away, not have them. Oh, I'm not angry. I can't stick up for myself with my sister. I have to put away my anger. I have to hide it, or I'm going to get hit or spanked or put down for that. So I've got to put away the needs. I can't have them. I'm not allowed to have them. They aren't valid. That's what we think. So we learn not to have them or to recognize them. That's a healthy person, right? We all have needs, just like a house plant. You go get a plant, you buy a plant, and there's a little sticker in that thing there that says, this plant needs this much light and this much water and this much fertilizer or food. And it tells you the needs of the plant. If you meet the needs of the plant, you're going to have a thriving, happy, beautiful, blooming plant. But if you don't, that plant is going to languish and fade away. And that's what a lot of people are doing in their lives. They're settling for that fading away because they weren't allowed to read the little thing that says, I need this. And to meet those needs, they don't even know maybe what their needs are. So that's what I do, is my life work since that bosomy grandmother experience. My life work is to teach people what we need. We have physical needs, emotional needs, mental and spiritual. A lot of times we don't know what they are. We're not used to learning that stuff. So I wrote it out in a chart, and people can just go down there and look through that chart and say, oh, I'm hungry. My blood sugar is low. I didn't get enough sleep last night. That's what's wrong with me. Only take a nap. Or emotional needs. I need connection, affection, connection with other people. I need to know that I matter. Or mental needs. I need to learn something new. I need to learn how to problem solve. I need to learn the skill. Or spiritual needs. I need to have peace and unity, and I need to contribute to life, to have a meaning and purpose. But so many times, I don't know many psychologists that teach that, and then how to meet your needs. When your needs are hidden from you, then one way to find what you need is to go to your feelings. I don't know what I need right now, but let me start with my feelings. What emotion am I feeling right now? Let me go there. Oh, I'm feeling sad because my dog just died, and I'm needing a hug, some connection. I'm missing what my dog used to give me. I'll ask a friend to go out to lunch with me and give me a hug. That's meeting our needs. Not to do that is to have an adult in pain running around in pain, probably barking at other people, or too grieving to be able to hear another person's thoughts and needs because they're so busy wrapped up in their own. So to not meet our needs, spiral downhill. So how do you meet your needs once you find them? There's a lot of ways, but that's what I teach people. One of them is to look to God, look to your inner guide, an angel, ask a friend for a hug or to go out to lunch with you. Make sure that you're parenting yourself, you're getting enough food, rest, exercise, you feel safe in your, sheltered, and then meet your emotional needs in connection with other people, learn what you need to find out in life, and then serve life many ways. And every time it's different, each individual.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And so now you've worked with hundreds of people. What do you think are some of the top like 3 unmet needs that people have?
Okay. Love. But we have to start out first with safety and security. That's the big basic need, right? If you look at a child, they need food and water and exercise, and okay, so if you're looking at your own needs, here's a little checklist. First, am I secure and safe? Do I have a roof over my head? Do I live in a safe neighborhood? Do I feel safe from violence or horror or the elements? And do I have enough good food and enough exercise and rest? So that comes first. And then when those needs are met, the inner child is going to want love and connection with other people. We need other people. We're not meant to be loners. That's not a healthy way to be. We're kind of like pack animals that need other people. And we get nourishment when we connect, when we are seen and heard and understood, and we can express our feelings to them. So you want to choose somebody that you trust to give you that. And then we need significance. We need the reflection that we exist, that we matter, that we're valuable. And that's why, my little granddaughter, she'll say, "Oh, look at me. I can do this on the monkey bars now, and I can tie my own shoe now." And she's so thrilled, and she wants to be validated and seen at every step of the way, because almost like she can't validate herself. She needs my reflection that, yeah, you did that. Right on. Good job. And they still need that at that level. And so we still need that, as some of us still need that from ourselves, other people. And then we need growth. We need to develop and learn how to problem solve. We need to know how to take care of ourselves and to meet our needs. And then lastly, we need purpose. We need the fulfillment of serving life, knowing that we contributed to life, knowing that we made a difference. But that would be match kind of what the Maslow's hierarchy of human needs is. First, you got to take care of the safety. So when I work with a client, I check those things. First, we check that the first needs are met, safety, and then of connection, and then of significance, and then of growth, and then of contribution.
It's so amazing. So much like knowledge about all these things. You've been doing this for so long. I mean, it's very interesting because with things like I never even thought about, it's making me think about things like, can I ask you, like, what inspired you to want to work with, entrepreneurs and all the coaches?
When I work one-to-one with people or in a group with people, that changes a life. And that matters to one person. If I can when I train coaches, I thought to myself, if I can train coaches and other therapists to do this work, then I've multiplied my reach by hundreds of times, because each one can reach hundreds of people. But in a way, even back in, 30 years ago, when I was instructor at Body Mind College here in San Diego for 15 years, we were training holistic health practitioners before the word coach was a thing. In essence, we were training coaches because we trained them to do the counseling and the emotional work with people as well as physical work. So I've been doing that all along. But also I love working with coaches. It's just so much fun because they're ready. they've worked on themselves enough, or they value the personal growth work and they're ready for their next steps. And I like to help them, in blocks in their business and support them, because even though I've been doing this for over 30 years, I still need a coach to help and support me. And I have that for times when I run into blocks and I can't spot my own blind spots. And I just like the support of other people because I can ask for help. So I like supporting coaches and entrepreneurs. And I like spiritual ones because they recognize so much more when they take into that component, the spiritual as well as the physical, emotional, mental, and the spiritual. So I just love it. And entrepreneurs know that their business is really a personal growth system designed it's disguised as a business. So our work, our relationships, and our health all seem to bring up the stuff that we have yet to heal. And I love helping them in that.
So how can somebody know that if they're being either led by like a wounded part of themselves, like a wounded part of the inner child, versus their authentic self?
Oh boy, what a good question. Because sometimes that passion can feel pretty righteous and pretty strong and take us away. Like when I was mad at my husband, I know you're supposed to give me love. How do I know that when we react, when it feels like we're carried away by our emotion, our passion, it's probably the wounded inner child, right? You can relate to that. Times when you've said things that later, oh, I wish I would have let that percolate or heal before I spoke up like that. I wish I would have, done my inner work before I went back to that person and told them off. So anytime there's great reaction or fear, you're in your wounded inner child. Fear or anger, you're in your inner child. So what it feels like when it comes from the clarity, from our own inner guidance, from our own healed inner parent, our own healed inner child, it feels like joy and rightness and security and connection and love and fun. I think if you're having fun, you're in your positive inner child. You're in your clear self. And my granddaughter teaches me that. She has joy and fun just bubbling below the surface, ready to have fun and laugh at any little thing. We don't need a reason. She'll tell a joke and laugh even though it doesn't make sense. Just for the fun of laughing, just for the excuse of laughing. Yesterday she was doing that. You can be angry because you didn't get what you wanted. And you can love your inner child and say, you really wanted that thing. You really wanted that to happen, and a special event to happen. It was canceled and you really wanted that to happen and you're really discouraged and disappointed. And you can be in your functional inner child and still be sad by loving her and giving her empathy and compassion. And so that's how to handle it. If you ever don't feel happy or uncomfortable or sad, my go-to practice for myself and with my clients is to sit with that inner child in my imagination, or ask the client to sit with their inner child in their lap or their arms or before them and ask, what are you feeling? I'm sad. I didn't get to go to that event. And what are you needing? I need some fun maybe I can have fun in a different way, or maybe I can go to it next month and look forward to that. What am I needing? How can I give myself some fun today? What would be fun for me today? What would I like? And ask the inner child, what do you need? What would you like to do? And then meet that need. Let's see. So your question was, how do we know if it's the wounded or the healed inner child? If it is the wounded, then we go, it feels bad. The healthy inner child feels good. The wounded inner child feels bad. So if we feel bad, there's an unmet need there. and we can go and access it. If it's not available, easy to find, we can ask, what are you feeling first? And sometimes the feeling will cue us into what we're needing. Make a plan how to meet that need. And then you feel loved. Okay, I'll go to the event next month. Today I'm going to go to the beach.
I want to kind of circle back to what you talked about earlier in the conversation. You spoke about witnessing your mother's last breath. How did that spiritual moment impact your life's work?
Oh, yeah. Mm. I was in a hospice house with my mother, and we knew that, she would never leave there alive. And I asked inwardly, spiritually, I said, Mom, can I be there with you at your last breaths? And because I heard that people can choose who they want with them there. And I said, can I be there? And I released that wish to spirit. And I had weekends off to go do laundry and shop and everything. And I went back to the hospice house. My sister was Monday or Sunday night, I think. And my sister had relieved me for the weekend, but then I came back, and so she went home. And I remember that night I had work to do. My mom was kind of not really conscious. And I had work to do, and I thought, I could go over to the library of this hospice house and I should do my work. But my feeling, now I know it was my inner guidance, my feeling said, no, stay here. And I listened to a spiritual audio instead. And now I know that my mom was probably absorbing that unconsciously. I didn't do it to influence her, but that she was probably getting something spiritually from that. Little did I know it was preparing for her transition out of her body. And while I was listening to that, the nurse pops in and she goes, oh, your cousin's here from Colorado. Or she says she'll be here in about 20 minutes. I thought, whoa, I haven't seen her for 40 years. And when my cousin arrived, and 20 minutes later, we hugged and I said, wow, I haven't seen you. What's happening? She goes, I was at home 6 hours ago because I'm in Colorado and I was in Kansas with my mom at that time. And my cousin said, I was at home doing something in the kitchen. And all of a sudden, Spirit spoke to me and said, go see Benita, which is my mom. And they were close. And she goes, okay, as soon as I finish, no, Spirit says, no, go now. She dropped it, hopped in her car, drove 6 hours to get to that hospice house and be with me at that time. And she could see that Mom was non-responsive, but she went over to her and said, I'm here, Benita. I'm here. I love you and everything. And then she turned to me and she said, let's go just over here and catch up a little bit. So we sat, and while we were talking, a few minutes later, my cousin, Patty, looked at my mom and she said, Bess, your mother has stopped breathing. Oh, no, we missed it. If we rushed to her bedside, and we didn't. She took another few deep breaths. Patty called the nurse. The nurse put her stethoscope, and she said, your mother is taking her last breaths. So I had prepared what I wanted to say. I believe she heard it on somewhere where said, Mom, we love you. My brothers and sisters, named them. We're all here. We love you. And we go to the light, go to God. We love you. We send you off. We're happy for you. She took her last breaths. So grateful that I got my wish, and grateful. That was a great demonstration to me about inner guidance. And that has changed my life since. My inner guidance said, stay there, listen to the spiritual recording. My cousin's inner guidance said, go. And that story changed me. Oh, whoa, this is real, And then my cousin told me that she was a hospice nurse. And that's why she kept her eyes on my mom to watch her breathing. Spirit sent my cousin to help me see Mom's breathing and to give me company at that time. But because my cousin was there watching Mom's breathing, so I wouldn't miss her last breaths, then we went to her. So it all was a setup, such a gift that I was sent my cousin, who I love, and she was a hospice nurse, helped me to be there for the last breaths. And afterwards, I did see my mom. I just asked her a vision, could I see what happened at your translation, your transition? So I don't say people die anymore. I say their body died, but I never say the person died. So when I asked that question, I was shown that my mom was glowing. Her hands were in the hands of her spiritual guide, and that she was glowing and happy.
Wow, that was really powerful, man. It really brought a tear to my eye. I mean, I was a little crying on this that, but that was extremely powerful. Wow. Well, that's the story. I wasn't expecting you to say all that. That was really powerful. Wow, that's really amazing. I mean, to have that experience of, in a parent transition, that's really amazing. I mean, can you maybe, since you have so much like knowledge and experience, can you maybe give advice, one piece of advice to maybe somebody out there who may be listening to this podcast that they either feel stuck or they have a lot of fear or feeling unworthy or unloved? What's one piece of advice to somebody out there that?
The one thing, whenever you feel bad or stuck or frustrated, angry, depressed, or fear or scared, whatever you're feeling, take a moment, sit down, take a breath. You can put your hand on your heart or your tummy if you want, wherever your inner child lives for you, or in your lap. And even if you're not used to seeing your inner child and can't visualize them or feel them, just ask anyway. What am I feeling? What am I needing? The answer might surprise you. If you can remove all judgment, your acceptance to your feelings and needs, give them total acceptance and remove the judgment, then your inner self will feel more courageous to tell you what they're really feeling and needing. If you can't come up with feelings and needs, you can get my chart about that I've made. Because some people just look through the chart. Oh, I'm feeling this. Oh, I'm needing this. And this is how I can meet that need. I do have that for people who would help. Until you get to know your inner child, practice this art, this relationship. And I call it real conversations with yourself, meaning your feelings and needs with your own inner child. That's what I call inner child work. So my advice is to take a moment. Why not give yourself this several times a day as a routine, as a regular check-in with your inner child? But especially when you're feeling bad, especially when you're feeling stuck or angry or scared about anything. You deserve it.
Bess, if somebody had a question from our interview today or they're interested in working with you, what are the best ways they can reach you?
BessMcCarty.com/inner. Nope, we're going to do /real. Can reach me there, learn more, and there's a contact form on there on my website. If you fill that out and say, send me that chart, then I'll be glad to do that for you. Or if you'd like a complimentary coaching session, you can find that there too.
Oh, thank you so much for offering that to the audience. That's really amazing. I'm sure a lot of people will be interested. Everything you talked about, I don't know how anybody can pick it up. If somebody had, now that we're wrapping up the podcast, do you have any final words you'd like to share with the audience before we sign off for the day?
You matter. You deserve love. You are worthwhile. You are lovable. You count. You're worthy of love. You can have it. You matter.
Bess, thank you so much for coming on this show. I really appreciate it. You shared so much wisdom and knowledge about a really important topic with the inner child healing. I think it probably, should be talked about more often because it clearly impacts on daily lives, whether it's our relationships or our business. So I definitely think it's something that should, a lot more people read about. So I really appreciate you coming on the podcast and explain to everybody what is in child healing and experiences working with other people in their child healing work. I really appreciate this. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing
Thank you,
everything.
Daniel. Thank you for getting this out there, but also all the people that you work with. Thank you for this important work that you're doing. You are changing the world. And I hope that people share these with other people and not just, get it for themselves, but share and all of that and explode this work that you're doing.